Screen. Let's go to.
Hey,
Morning.
wait a minute, I'm gonna turn on the camera. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. Can you hear?
Hello. I
Hello.
can hear you.
Can you see
Hi, how
also?
you doing?
I'm good.
I can see you. Yeah, I can see ET behind you.
Okay, yeah, right. My my little wall of
Oh,
old tributes.
you got Star
Uh,
Wars up there as well. Oh,
yeah.
big.
We're selling our house, and the other day the photographer was coming, and he was gonna take pictures, and then he walked around and he looked into this place and he said, "Oh, can you?" And there are a box of Lego, and said, "Could you just remove the box of Lego from the children's room?" And then I looked at him. Can you see a bed anywhere? No, this is my office. Oh, all right.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Oh, I love it. I love the yeah, I must admit my house is becoming more childlike, and it's got nothing to do with the children. It's
No, no, it is. We have to remember being silly and childish, and I think
absolutely.
it comes with the job working at Lego. It's a
Yeah.
natural ability at this
Yes.
point.
Yes. My children are most excited that I'm talking to someone who works at Lego. Uh,
Yeah, it has an effect.
turn this around. My son did a special little scene for you. So Mini Me is part of the fight scene with Iron Man, and I don't know who the other one is. Uh,
Okay.
so he set that
Oh,
up.
that's
He set that all up for you.
oh great. Thank you. It looks a little uneven, I think. Who do you think will? Do you think Mini Me will?
Mini Me will win.
Yeah, sure.
Her stairs, and that'll be it. They'll be okay. They'll be sorted. But listen, it's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Now we almost know each other. It's so funny this COVID and these online times you get to meet people and talk to. You actually know them, but it's only one-sided, right? You have only
Yeah.
the words, and you think you know them, and then you meet them, and it's all a new start almost. So
Yes, yes. No, it's been. I have to say, this year has been incredible for me. Like that of meeting and talking to and getting to know people that I just would never have. That opportunity would never have happened if it hadn't been for the strange things that have gone on this year. So it's been a blessing.
yeah, and that's what we have to remind ourselves that even though it's a new experience and we think that we are missing out on things, something else has come, and it's I for the last 6 months, the the amount of new people that I've met and I talked to from all over the world. Of course, it's something to do with the book release and appearing on social media and stuff like that. But it's so interesting just to say, yeah, sure, and then reach out to people and just writing to someone, say, yo, I find you on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever. Do you want to jump on a call next week? Yeah, sure. Like,
Yeah,
like it's almost like in the train station, right? Before everyone was just sitting looking at their iPhones, and you
yeah,
would just look at people and say, "Oh, hello, and how are you?" And
yeah,
so,
yeah. No, it's lovely, and I mean, so where are you? Where do you live? You're not UK, are you?
no, I'm in Denmark.
Denmark, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, it's funny because I live on my own with my three boys, and they were actually with their dad for some of the summer. But people often say to me, "Do you not get lonely? Do you not feel that you're on?" And I'm like, I've never been more connected with people, but I barely left the house.
yeah,
Which is, and yes, I miss face-to-face connection with people and seeing my friends as much as I would like. But in terms of being connected and talking to people and exploring lots of exciting things that I wouldn't have been exploring otherwise, I couldn't have felt more connected, actually. So,
No.
and thank God for technology. Thank God we have all
Yeah.
amazing technology now that can enable this for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we use it all the time at the Lego group. It's how we work and
Yeah.
connect. But I think what I miss is, I'm not used to being, working on my own that much because,
Mhm.
for many years working in the advertising industry, it's always a collaboration. You're always five people together in a room, or two people, or you're together with someone else to create something together.
Yeah.
So it is. It's a little bit. I miss the people interaction.
Mm.
Sitting together with people in a room. It's easier for me to come up with ideas together with others if I can be together with them, because I can also. There's also something in body language and the
Yeah.
energy and everything, and just in a way it's a funny thing. I'm slowly becoming blind, and I'm losing that sense,
Mm.
but this is almost an extra loss, like
Mm.
having that this energy in the room. I could sometimes just sense that. I could just notice something in body language, or and I
Mm.
and it's difficult to kind of read people now. It's
Yeah.
it's and also because sometimes when you are in a group and they only have this thumbnail, it's really difficult to sense what's going on with that guy there. He's all of a sudden he got quiet. Is that because he's texting someone, or is it what's going on? Like,
Mm. Yeah. And I've heard that from, I mean, I call myself quite a creative person, but I don't work in a creative field, and I never, well, I've always been creative, but I've never worked in a creative field. But it was interesting because I've heard a couple of people say that about, and I get the energy piece because a lot of the work I do is around energy, but that when you get people together in a room when you're creating something, there's an energy, that gets created in that space that is very hard to replicate in any
yeah,
other way. Which I kind of get because when I've worked with teams, I was a project manager for many years, and that was creative in its own way because we were creating solutions to a
yeah,
problem, because generally they were a problem or a challenge or something that we needed to change, and all of those best ideas, all of those solutions would come out of group interaction,
yeah, yeah,
energy coming together. So it's an ongoing challenge, I'd imagine. And what, particularly for people like Lego, who are all over the world, all your creative teams are all over the world, but you have these hubs, don't you, of sort of people
yeah,
that,
yeah. We have a London hub, and we have one in Asia, also in China, and yeah, in US, of course,
yeah,
and there's the big factory in Mexico, and so it's all over the world,
yeah,
and so that's also when we have these group gatherings. It's always about, okay, what time zone are you in? When, so is it the evening at your place, or
yeah,
I'm starting to learn it because I've been with the book release and all that. I've been talking to a lot of people from the east coast of the US, and that's about 6 hours in difference. So it's not that bad. It's always late in the afternoon, or if they want to talk to me in their late afternoons, it's like really late night or evening. So yeah, it's a challenge sometimes to find a time, because when it's really good for me, then they're working, they're busy, and
yeah, yeah. I've got some clients I work with in Singapore, so I have to do really early in the morning here, which sort of lands with their lunchtime, which is
yeah,
a good time for them, and it means I can do it before the kids and my normal morning routine, which was lovely in the summer because it would be light here and it'd be fine. But in the midst of winter, it's not so good being up that early in the morning. But
no, it's standing up in the middle of the night, I guess.
yeah, but it works. So that's the main thing. So how do I haven't your book has arrived. I have a copy on my desk, which is fantastic, and I've got a nice quiet weekend. So it's going to be my weekend reading. Um,
Oh,
how's I mean, obviously your life has changed dramatically over the last few years with what you're going through with your blindness. But I mean, I can imagine that it's changed just as much from writing the book and putting that out in the world.
Yeah, yeah, it's all in one big pile of life
Mm.
event, I guess. It's sort of, the book became sort of intertwined in my efforts to, master this situation that I'm in. It's so it's but again, it's also been my intention to recognize when that entanglement has become too much of a, okay, I have to be able to put the book away and feel, fully 100%
Yeah.
myself, so it's yeah, that is an ongoing effort to keep myself separated from all the stories, because they are stories. I just know, I was just watching this morning, they were sending the 15-minute talk in the Philippines, and I was just laughing while I was watching it, because it's just such a crazy thing, coming up with an idea 4 years ago. I said, I want to just, I just want to investigate, if I put my mind into telling the story, how far can it come? Like, it became sort of, it became sport. It became sort of a challenge and a game for me. Just try it, and then, don't take it too seriously. It's just the story I'm telling. and now I was just laughing because, now it's in the Philippines, and it's been broadcasted live on the internet in the whole Philippines. The whole advertising industry in the Philippines are watching it now, and I started getting tweets, and I was just laughing because, it's so crazy when people decide to do something, and it's almost like we are all in this big pool of, universal consciousness. We're all in that consciousness, and then sometimes somebody peaks or does something that captures the attention of everyone in this, and then the group consciousness goes to this area, and then all of a sudden, something crazy happens. It can sort of elevate this individual to a point where he explodes or she explodes, but this whole mechanism, and it's just been a field study for me to see what happens if I just go nuts and just, dare to just keep pushing this, and then be slightly amused by the capability that we have if we really decide to.
Yeah.
So that's the experiment. So it is an experiment.
And I love what you say there about, it being fun, not being too serious. It's something I'm playing with my coaches at the moment. Is, we do make our lives incredibly serious. Incredibly serious, and that's where the heaviness comes. In whatever you're dealing with, right? Whether they're little things or big things, and actually, as you say, they're all just a magical story that we could just have some fun with if we let ourselves. Which is why I've loved the mini me Lego thing, because I can take my life pretty seriously. I can be quite a serious person, and I'm coaching a lot of people who are dealing with some serious stuff, most of which, as you say, are stories. I'm dealing with all my own stories, so actually just having a bit of lightness and a bit of fun and a bit of, as you say, experimenting, bit of a field study, a bit of a, what if I do start putting out mini me on my social media pages? What will people do? It's kind of, it's a level of fun that's just been missing, really, which
and just show off my silly looking slippers, and and then see what happens. It's interesting, and I think no, I'm self-taught in all this. I just had to, because it's interesting because people say to me, no, not everyone can do what you have done, Morten. And I say, yeah, okay, if you say so. And that's exactly the problem right there. When you say that, that's what you have decided. Like, and then it's impossible to discuss it. It's like, all right, I accept your premise. You can believe that, and then I can believe what I believe. And that's right there. That's the difference.
Yeah, and I had several conversations with people about, you know, if we can believe, if we can believe the stories that make it all very serious, and if we can believe the stories that everything's doom and gloom, and if we can believe those stories, which again are just stories, you know, it's like, you know, this year everyone's saying, oh, you know, this wasn't how we thought the year was going to go. Well, yeah, but you didn't know. You just made up a story of how the year was going to go based
Yeah,
on past experience. So if you could believe those stories, how about you believe something else? You know, which is exactly the journey you've been on, right? Is, you know,
yeah,
if I believe that actually this is a, you know, road to possibility, right? How about if I tell myself that story, which I think
yeah.
is so. And the little video clip you put out where you explained that, you know, and the rewiring and the habits and the behaviors. Honestly, I watched it and I was just like, oh my gosh, you have just articulated much better than I ever have what I believe, what I try to speak to, but I've never been able to say it quite as quite as well as you had. It was like, oh, that's it, that's exactly it. Which yeah, was fantastic. I love that little
Uh,
tip you did.
well, thank you. Well, I do those small videos on occasions, but I think what I benefit from is 20 years of experience into communicating something complex into something that is just so easy to understand. That's what we do in the advertising industry. We take something complex, you know, we have this gizmo thing. It's so awesome. We can do this and we can do that, and you know, it's built with all this and that. But yeah, but you know, what is the benefit of it? How can it enrich people's lives? You know, have you thought about that? Yeah, well, we'll get back to you on that. So just looking into this complexity and then figure out how can this resonate with people. And I think that comes pretty easy to me now.
Mm.
So it was a fun experiment to can I do the same with my own story? I've done it for companies for so many years. Can I take my own complexity and put it into very simple explanations, and can it then help other people? And I guess I came to all those realizations through skipping Netflix, news, everything else than just absorbing information. So I've listened to thousands of hours of conversation between philosophers, and you know, just there are millions of hours of knowledge on YouTube. You know, watching everything from Eckhart Tolle, for instance, and then do it again, and then do it again. And Alan Watts, I've listened to hours of information. I don't know if you know Jiddu Krishnamurti. He was an Indian philosopher or thinker, and he had a lot of discussions with David Bohm. David Bohm was a physicist that kind of came to realization that all the physical stuff that he was studying was really connected to all what the Buddhists talked about, and how can that somehow. So they started to having conversations in the 70s, just hours and hours of conversation. I listened to all that, and at one point I just got this sort of deep inside of me knowledge that, you know, there's something here that we just got all wrong. You know, the ants living in the hype, or you know, there's something that we got all wrong, and we think that thinking is the prime achievement of humankind. You know, and I said to myself, okay, I can see now that thinking all the time is what makes me unhappy. So how can I try to train myself to not do that, which is extremely difficult because I do it, you know, all the time.
Yeah,
So, but I started to observe it and I started to notice it, and I said, okay, now I feel sad. Why? How can that be? And I rewind and I said, okay, what? You're starting to think again about the career and your future and all that. Okay, I think it started there, and then I go back to that, and I just okay, sit down, and then I get totally quiet, and I just sit for half an hour with that and sense the body, and then all of a sudden I realized, okay, that was again a story that the creative mind just, you know, decided to go along with. And I can often rewind, and I had that moment, the post with it on the what do you call that, the road with the minifigure there.
yeah,
That was one of those. You know, I had that for 2 days. I couldn't figure out what was going wrong, and then I had that And I actually was listening to the chapter in my own book, and I said, "Oh, I've been through this 7,000 times before. I know how to get back again." So,
Mm.
but it is extremely intriguing how our minds work. It's brilliant, but at the same, it's self-destructive.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you say, if you're a very creative person, you can create you create very vivid stories. So the thing, and I, my belief is often our inherent strengths, the things we're really good at, are often also the things that we can be our, I talk about superpower and kryptonites. So the thing that's our superpower can also be our kryptonite. I
Yeah.
absorb information very easily, and I think a lot, and I can process that, and like you say, sort of process it down to more simple understanding. But then I think a lot.
Mm.
Which is also my kryptonite, because a bit like you, I'll get to the point where I'm like, can you just switch off? I just want to switch off. I don't want to be thinking. I don't want to be thinking about how it can help my business, or how it can help my children, or how it can help me. I just don't want to. But they're the same thing. They're the same. That thing that also makes us brilliant at what we do is also kind of our kryptonite that can floor us.
Yeah.
The rewind bit that you talk about, I think, is something, and I believe in these. We meet people when we need them. So how we sort of crashed into each other was coinciding with me thinking a lot about this idea of the story, the stories we tell ourselves, and situations that we find ourselves back in again and again, like the lonely feeling, or the sad, or the angry. And I think that's probably why it resonated so much. Kind of got to that stage of I recognize the story now, and I'm starting to rewind it. And of course, because I work with people and coaching, I want to bring that into what I do, with coaching people. So, and it's that awareness, isn't it? It's that first moment of, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I love all the thousands of hours you spent listening to all this stuff, because again, I don't listen. I tend to read rather than listen to stuff. But often, as you said there about all those complex things coming down to something quite simple. And whenever I read all of it, and I read a sort of myriad of stuff, but actually there are only a few kind of core simple things, aren't there, in the midst of it. And you kind of have to explore all the complex and the hours of conversation and the books and everything. But the number of times I kind of read it and just go, it's kind of all saying the same thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just in loads of different ways, which I think is also fascinating.
Yeah. I think I remember a quote from Albert Einstein. He said, um, "If you can't explain it extremely simple, then you haven't gotten it. You have to be able to explain so simple that a 3-year-old can understand it.
Mm,
Otherwise, you haven't got it." And that's I think what I just started to enjoy listening to it. It was my way of creating peace also in my head. It
yeah.
was you can call it an escape. In the beginning, it was an escape, but I think it was I decided that it was a very productive place to go if I wanted to escape. I could consume alcohol. I could watch hours and hours of Avengers movies, and that would also be fine. But here I chose something that would also build me up, give me something that I could use, and then that became my new Netflix.
Mm,
So seeking out these brilliant minds, and it's so interesting that a lot of those brilliant minds um, don't give credit for their minds. They give credit for their ability to be in between the mind and themselves, and that's also interesting.
mm.
I've gained a lot of insights from listening to Eckhart Tolle, and that's just been yeah, I used it. It's almost like if I feel that I'm all over the place, I just have to listen to him a couple of
Yeah.
20 minutes, something like that. Then it's all coming back now. I know what's going on. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And like you say, it's a fantastic escape, isn't it? If it is an escape, right? Which again, the stories we tell ourselves are we're not allowed to escape. It's part of that life is too serious. You can't just escape off and listen to this stuff. You should be doing something. But
Yeah.
actually, the reality is most of the world is escaping, but they're not. It's alcohol or Netflix or any of the other things which I've been guilty of over the years. Alcohol was my go-to escape. And I actually made a conscious decision. I gave that up 18 months ago, and stopped escaping there. But I now escape in my books or my watching stuff, which, as you say, is still a form of escape, but it's a nurturing form of escape. It's
Yeah.
you say a productive or a nurturing. It replenishes me in a way that alcohol, of course, never did. Or any of the other places we run to escape.
Yeah. There's a difference to the in going below, going down in consciousness or going up in consciousness. And I think that what I try to do now, and it's not about, it's not an ego thing when I say it like this, but I try to go up, up in consciousness instead of down in consciousness. But it is interesting. I think it's just a matter of being able to observe yourself from an observer's position, almost like watching what's going on. I think then you're above. But if you go below, where you sort of just get free of everything and you just sedate yourself and you're almost out, then you're also free for a period. But it's below. You don't really work with anything. You're not aware of what's going on. You just got your break, and then all of a sudden you go back, and then you're in it again, and then you have to go down again. I think I just think of it as going up instead. That's why I have a couple of images in my presentation. I have one right now where when I start the interesting thing is that my talk can be it can be fitted, or what do you say, I can put another context just by having another intro. Like right now I have a lot of talks where I have an image of me. It's like we have space, and we have a layer of clouds, and my head is just above the clouds, and then we have coronaviruses flying all over, and it's just say when your world goes crazy. And because that was somewhat the same I experienced a couple of years ago. My world went crazy because someone told me, you are legal blind, you can't drive anymore, you should consider yourself as disabled and all that. And I say, okay, right now you are probably experiencing the same thing. You feel that your world is going crazy. Now I'm going to tell you a story. And so I have that image. I see it also in my imagination. If I feel that I'm stuck, and I see myself going up and almost out in space, and it gives my body the right, I think the chemicals start, oh, you're free, you're so free, you don't even, you forget it all the time. You are in space, you're floating out here. And that's again a trick, right? It's a mind thing where you put yourself in the driver's seat and said, okay, I know that I can control this body with my mind, but I have to control, or at least be good friends with the mind, or put myself in the driver's seat. Otherwise it will take me to crazy places, like up and down. And so
I love that.
But it's interesting.
The imagery thing is amazing as well, like you say, because something I really love is creating those images. I like people to go there themselves with the images. Like you say, you've already created whatever that first slide is. People are already in your story, but in a version of it, right? Because they'll be looking at that image and seeing something that resonates with them. When you were talking there, you may have come across this in your reading and watching, but have you seen the octopus teacher?
No.
As you're saying about Netflix, I don't watch Netflix very often at all, because it is that chasm of just a void of watching rubbish. But there is a beautiful documentary on there about, I can't remember the guy's name, it's called The Octopus Teacher, and he worked in, what did he work in? I can't remember now. He was in an industry where he'd been photography. He did photography, films, editing, all that sort of thing. And he did amazing stuff in his work, but he said he got to a point where he just was getting no joy from it whatsoever and felt very disconnected. He did a documentary in Africa somewhere with like the really intuitive guides that work there who are so connected to their environment that they know from a beetle in the ground what that means. And so he spent some time with them, and he realized how disconnected he was from his world. And he lived, I can't remember where he lived now, but when he was young he lived by the sea, and they had these kelp forests. So he went back. He said, I realized to get reconnected, I had to go back to my childhood and go back into the sea. So he started diving in these kelp forests. And he, a bit like you were saying about habits and behaviors and rewiring your brain, he basically went, I knew I needed to do that every single day for a year. I set myself that intention that I was just going to go and do that.
Yeah.
Discovered this octopus, and then this whole,
oh yeah, okay, now I've seen that. Okay, several people have asked me or recommended that. Maybe I should now. I need to go and see it. Yeah.
I sat on Sunday afternoon, and it was just, and it's one of those ones I'll watch again and again and again because there's so much from it, but it's beautiful. But I think it speaks to what you were saying in the talk that I saw, the little video that you did of this. We can set those new behaviors and open up so much. His world has opened up again, whereas he felt it was closing down, just by going and doing something very simple that seemed totally counterintuitive. Go and dive every day and spend time underwater in the forest on your own, but yet opened up this. And he now runs a school which are all they're committed to the sustainability of the kelp forests. And the imagery in it is beautiful.
I started watching it one late evening, and but I never came back to it. But I have to now. I will see it.
Yeah, and I'm really my middle son is very. I think he will end up doing something within sustainability or working with nature. And I've said to him, we really must sit down and watch it because I think he'll love it, and he's very in tune with that sort of thing. So I think he'll really appreciate it. But yeah, it's that's a beautiful story. If you were gonna make a story up, that one I could go down that story route with him. So yeah. Sorry, it just came to mind when you were talking about your.
Yeah, great. But it was also, how did we connect? That was through Catherine, right?
Yeah, Catherine
Wakefield.
Yeah. So how do you know Catherine? What's your?
Well, that's a funny story also. I use the word funny. That's wrong, right? Funny is fun is something, and funny is something else, right?
Yeah.
And how is it? Can you tell? Fun is that's interesting. That it's funny is a little. Is it a little wacky or?
Yeah. In the English language, I think we associate funny with it being it's a bit of a dismissive word. It's a bit.
Yeah. I have that feeling.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, don't know why, but yes, there is a distinction between it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun story then, because I was at the Lego group. I was facing this interesting period where I didn't really know what to do, and how can I develop, and how normally would be like, you're an art director, you would develop into your skills of creating visuals and stuff like that. And I said, what's the point in that? I know that I'm gonna be more and more blind. So should I focus my my skills and my talent on something else? But what should that be? And so I was in seven minds, and then I asked my leader, could I sit down with a coach, someone who could help me? And they said, yeah, we'll look into it. And a lot of time went, and I thought, what's going on? And then one day they came back and said they found someone. Well, you want to meet her? And I said, yeah, sure, I would love to. And then we got on a call, and then Catherine was there. And in the first moment I just saw her, I said, that's the right fit. That's perfect. And I don't know why, but then we started talking, and it turned out that we would try to do this. I just needed someone to help me make sense of everything. So we did some very interesting sessions also on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The whole room was, we picked things that represented different parts of myself, and we put big sheets of paper on the floor, and I was walking down. So we were really investigating things. So we got to learn each other through that process, and then afterwards we just kept connected. And so that's, I think,
She's a wonderful, wonderful coach.
Yeah,
Well, my fun story of meeting Catherine is we both qualified as one of many coaches, so an organisation called One of Many, which is a women's empowerment community. We met through that, and we both certified as coaches with them. But also my most so we had some real moments where we were on some of those training programs and retreats and things where we spent some time together, in that way, as you said, you kind of meet these people at exactly the right time and you immediately go quite deep with them. It's there's not the sort of networky small talk that goes on. It's literally like bang, right, we're right in it. And my first conversation with Catherine was like that, beautiful, but it went really deep really quickly.
yeah,
But then also she does all this beautiful Tibetan singing bowls.
yeah,
So I've been lucky enough to do a few sessions with her on that live, and also when she went on to Zoom during COVID. And they have always been such profound moments for me. Just really, really profound, beautiful moments. And there's something about Catherine, her whole energy, her voice, just everything about her that is just, I can imagine you getting on a call and immediately just going yes,
yeah,
just
yeah,
got that presence. And I'd love to work with her at some point. We did talk about that earlier this year, but it's just not the right time. It wasn't the brilliant synchronicity that happens, but I think it's a yet. I think we will at some point.
yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, she's a beautiful, beautiful person and a wonderful coach, and she's going deeper and deeper, with how she's working with people, which is, I just think, is fascinating.
I came across a, an Indian yogi at one point. I didn't meet him, but he was 1,000 years ago. There was this guy called Tilopa, and he had this very important quote, and it was, "Have a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing." So I really said, okay, that works for me. I will try to be open, and if if it interests me, I won't have a bias that says, but this is hocus pocus. It's if there's something that I can use from that enriches me, I said, let's come, let's bring it on. So so when she started after the third or fourth session to talk about Tibetan bowls, and I said, yeah, I know, I read a lot about that, and so, oh, okay. And so we could go really deep into all sorts of stories actually about what is reality, and it is interesting. I think I just tried to unlearn all the things that I thought about reality and said, hey, how can who can prove that all the things that we kind of assume about our reality based upon the limited knowledge we have and the limited senses we have, that's reality. Just because we can't see everything, it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's so strange to discuss this with people who are very conservative and very no, there's nothing paranormal out there, that doesn't exist, and then you say, well, and I say, why? Because you can't see it, and I say, you can't see electricity, you can't see the wind, you can only see the wind in the trees, right?
Yeah.
So there's an indicator that there's something, and you can feel it when you're standing, but you can't see it, right? Oh yeah, you're right. And there's also something called infrared light and ultraviolet, and you can't see that as well. You have to have a device in order to see it. It can detect it, and it tells you it's out there, but you can't see it. The sound we can't hear. You can only hear very limited frequency of sounds, and then they're all different sounds. So I just said, I go with a lot of stuff, and if I can use that as a philosophy and implement it in my life, I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very similar. I think in the last few years, I would say probably up till that point, I was, well, from early childhood, where I probably believed everything and anything. And then you get conditioned, don't you? And things get added on, which is why I talk a lot about, in some of the stuff that I do, I take children back to, people back to, what did you love as a kid? What made you weird as a kid? Let's go back there, because the secrets are in there, right? The secrets are there, and what you've done is you've been told not to do that, not to have, not to have fun, not to be weird, not to do this and to learn everything. And I made a conscious decision probably, 3 or 4 years ago as part of my journey to as you say, just go have a really open mind and not have to understand it to believe it, or at least go there. Because the other thing that I always think is, if we look around the world right now with all the conservative known truths, it's a pretty fucked up place, if we're honest. We're desperately unhappy, most of us. We're not sustaining our environment. We're breaking it. We carry around biases we don't even know about, and yet claim that we're not biased. All of these things. If we go with what we know as the truth, it's not that great. So for me, I kind of went, well, if I can believe that, why don't I believe this other stuff, which actually, I can't see it, but I can feel it. Was where I've gone with it, with the bowl stuff that Catherine did 6 years ago. I'd have dismissed that as absolute rubbish, right? And I probably wouldn't have even read about it to go and find out whether there was any truth behind it. I would have just dismissed it. But you know what? I feel it. So yes, no one's proved it to me. No one can disprove it to me, but I can feel it. And like I said, such profound, and not just with Catherine, with other people that practice it as well, such profound feelings. And that elevator thing that you spoke about earlier, I know that I'm elevated after that experience in a way that I'm not with some of the stuff that I'm told is the truth, and in fact, the opposite is true. I feel drained and I feel slipped into the the lower consciousness. So I'm like you. It's at the moment, it's like I don't have to understand it to believe it. I don't have to see it to believe it. And until I've experienced it, I shouldn't really knock it. And if it doesn't do anything for me, well, still doesn't mean it's not real. Just may not resonate with me. And it's like you were saying there about the sound thing. I think that's it. It's almost like tuning into a sound that you've not heard before, isn't it? I was working with a client the other day, and we were talking about, I was using it as an analogy of, you suddenly find a radio station that you've never heard before. You've been there, but you just haven't tuned into it before. And now all of a sudden your tuning on your radio is a little bit more precise, or going into a range that you've never been to before. And I kind of like that. I'm like, I don't want to listen to the same radio station all the time, and especially not the noise that's out there in the world right now. A lot of it I don't want to listen to. I like that idea of constantly trying to tune into sounds that we wouldn't, don't necessarily aren't in our normal range, which I think is fascinating. And where are you in your journey at the moment then with your site, if you don't mind me asking about that?
You can ask. Or site. I think I have I think I have a little test I can do, if I can. I never, when I need things, they're all, there it is. They're all always gone. This is sort of a little test. Or so imagine that that if you were looking at your screen, it was like this.
Gosh.
So you can see, if I just tune in. Now I got you. And I stick with that. I can see. But imagine if you were trying to tell me something with your hands now. Like using sign. This I wouldn't detect it. So there would be a lot of information that you would try to convey that I wouldn't get. It could be, I tried several times, people were pointing, and I just looked at their faces, and I could sense that something is wrong. There's something this person is now, there's something, and then that is because I don't look at their hands. So they do like this, and they expect me to look there, and I keep looking at their faces. So, and then all of a sudden they start over there, and then I look at their hands and I focus on that, while they maybe do this with the other hand. So it's sometimes really confusing. And I think the reason why I got into all the meditation and mindfulness stuff was that before 16, I would get 10,000 times a day. My body would feel stressed because I was totally on alert all the time. What's going on? What is he doing? What is happening? What is So I started to say, okay, I'm just exhausted from being so aware of what's going on out there all the time. So I started finding into that feeling right here in the solar plex. I always say it's right here, and I could feel every time that I was getting sort of, it would start there like a ray, but I didn't notice it, and I never felt it. So I started feeling it. So when I got that feeling, I would start to tune into that, and sometimes I could feel, oh my God, my body's just freaking right now, but I'm not aware of it because I'm always in my head. I'm thinking about what to do, and the body was just screaming and say, "Oh, you help!" Like it was totally freaked out. And then I just started teaching myself to be, go down in my feet, being totally grounded, and then even though crazy stuff could happen out there, I would just find my base and my calmness inside of me, and then everything could just freak out. And one really good way of teaching myself to do that was to become a public speaker, because I was shitting my pants the first time I had to stand on the stage. And then, but I started to look at it and say, okay, I know that my body will freak out. It's okay. No, it's just, let's experience that and see what happens. And can we tell another story about it instead of it being, horrifying and terrible? It's a great teacher that teach me that now I'm taking things too serious. I'm just gonna stand in front of a lot of very nice people who came all the way to see me, and there's nothing danger in that. But my body wasn't, it didn't agree with me. So we just, so we experienced it together, and people laugh at me when I talk about, me and my body, like it's us in a way. Like I say we, and people like, it's the same, right? No, it's not. It's not the same. I have this body. It's my tool, but there's something, there's a little something up here controlling that, and I can take that awareness and I can move it around and I can make it lift my arm. And so in a way, I'm just inside this canister, and it has a lot of, it's so elegantly crafted. It's so optically nerve cells and everything. So it can sometimes be overwhelming, and it can take control of that little thing up here that can focus around. So I started experimenting with not freaking out in crazy situations, and that this is part 3 of the book, where I experiment with this. So I put myself in situations where I would freak out, and then I say, let's see what happens when I do that, and notice that the brain start releasing cortisol and adrenaline and everything, and just notice that from a distance and say, it's just a good thing, because now it's preparing you for danger. But there's nothing dangerous in this, so you can actually give yourself a huge loving hug and say, don't worry, call back all the cortisol and adrenaline and put some oxytocin in there and serotonin, and that, in a sense, that's why I talk so much about storytelling, because that's again the writer sitting with its notepad and writing the story. It's I'm writing. I'm on the chapter now about happiness. Let's write that instead of writing the scarcity chapter. So it is, and people afterwards, it's so interesting because I don't know all the fancy words. Psychologists, I'm talking to psychiatrists and psychologists, and said, "Oh, you're actually using the Kleiderman hipster version, something." What? I have no idea what you talk about. And I don't know. And I also say subconscious. And someone told me, "Yeah, you don't say that anymore. You say unconscious." Well, who cares? It's just the word. It's the same thing. I read a lot of Jung, and he says subconscious. I go with that. So I'm like a child, just experiencing thing, and then I don't care about people saying, "Oh, you can't say that," and I don't care. It's like, I say it anyway.
And what you said at the beginning, I think, is really true. Is we can overcomplicate this stuff, and then people stop listening. And actually, the people who want this and want to hear it actually need it in very simple terms. How many we have a saying in England that is, you explain that to me in simple terms, right?
Yeah.
That's what we actually, as you going back to you saying about communicating effectively, is we actually want it simply. And as a project manager, I worked with a lot of tech, putting a lot of tech in, and I was always the person that would sit there and go, right, stop there, because you're talking in spiel. You are just talking, you're too tech. You need to explain this to me like I was a child.
Yeah.
As you said earlier, can you please just explain to me what it does? Okay. I don't need to know all the tech stuff behind it. Just, does it do this? Does it get me from A to B? Does it solve this problem? Does it, really simply talk to me like I'm a child? And I think that's something that people want, but you have to present it to them in a way that is intelligent, but not overcomplicated. And I think that's what makes you attractive to people, in a way that some of that other stuff, they just turn off from it because they're like, oh, I'm not going to understand it, it's too complicated, I need, so they stop listening. Whereas actually when it's presented to them in language that they understand and that they can relate to, they keep listening, and then they get the deep understanding, but in a way that works for them. And I think that's the bit that's really exciting, actually. And the bit you said there about the mind and the body,
Mm-hmm.
The octopus teacher again talks about that, because the octopus, and I can't remember the science of it, but basically what he was saying is the octopus's brain is in every part of their body.
Yeah. I know that.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
that to me was fascinating, because like you say, we kind of disconnect it, whereas actually everything we feel is in our bodies. Like
Yeah.
you get that feeling in your solar plexus. I get one in my gut. Like a physical kick in my gut. And like you say, you can run away from them or face them. And something came up on my Facebook feed today, actually, when you were saying about putting yourself in those situations and seeing what happens. 9 years ago today, I was abseiling off a building, which at the time I wouldn't have made that connection. That's what I was doing. But I know it was going to freak me out. I knew that I didn't particularly like heights. The thought of lowering myself backwards off a building was just, my palms would go sweaty, but I did
Yeah.
it anyway, and it was brilliant. When I got to the bottom, I was like, let's do it again, and I think that's something that I've always done, and it's I talk to myself and people that I work with about how close that feeling of fear, the sweaty palms, the butterflies in the stomach, that and excitement are really, really close. If you think about when you're at the top of a roller coaster,
Yeah.
is it fear or is it excitement?
Yeah.
That's what you call it, right? But
Yeah.
actually the feelings are very similar.
Yeah.
And
But is it?
sorry.
But just on that note, it's so interesting. But children, is it excitement or is it fear? What is it? And you can see that in children when they fall
Mm-hmm.
and they stand up and they watch the parents very, very carefully
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, and the moment the parents say, "Oh, dad, or pity, come here," then they start to cry. But if they say, "Oh, oxidases," and
Yeah.
then they smile and run, and that's the same thing. But that is the choice. That is that choice that I'm talking about, that we also have. But we know that it's, oh, this is not good. He fell over. He hurt himself. He should cry, right? Or I should feel pity. And that we do that, and we trained our bodies just to do it so quickly, because subconsciously or unconsciously it does it within milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right there. You have that choice to stop. Oh, I could, I could pity myself, or I could say, "Whoa, what a great learning experience! That was a gift. This shitty situation that I'm in now, what a gift it is!" Like, and then because people often say to me, aren't you deluding yourself? When you stop swap thoughts and say, shouldn't you just let bad things happen? And then I say, well, if you go a little further back, where does the word bad come from? You said is a bad situation. What if you didn't know it was a bad situation? What a and they always stop, like, I'll be damned. Like they realize at that moment, okay, bad is a construction,
Mm-hmm.
something. It's a human invention. because what I think is bad is rain, right? You from Britain, you know that. But in Ethiopia, after 3 years of dry, they would say, well, they would run up with the barrels and would just pick up the water and just,
Yeah.
so it's all
Mm.
perspective. So,
Yeah.
it's almost unlearning things and then start all over again, and learning to ride the bike backwards. And then,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, it's and saying about the rain there, I grew up in West Wales, which is even wetter than the rest of the UK, and we've still got a home there, so we go there for our holidays, and it's beautiful. I've got this beautiful decking looking out over this green lush woodland. We've got a stream that you can hear, and so I sit there in the sunshine looking at it. It's beautiful. And then there are days where it absolutely tips it down with rain, and it does not stop. And a few years ago, I'd have been, oh, it's raining, it's really bad. And now I do actually stop myself and say, and that's why it's so lush and so green, and I can hear the stream.
yeah,
If it wasn't for the rain, those days where it just rains and rains and rains, that wouldn't look like that. It would look like, a barren land in Ethiopia, and I wouldn't enjoy sitting and looking at it. So, and like you say, though, those everything has got these tags, isn't it? Good, bad,
yeah, yeah,
and we attach them, and that's why I like to switch off from a lot of the noise in the world, because there is a lot of constructing going on that we're told what is good, what is bad,
yeah, yeah,
and we buy into it. We buy into it like the herd of sheep,
yeah,
and if we try and go another way, we're told that we're weird,
yeah,
that we're not productive, that we're, that we got our head in the stars and not our feet on the ground and all those sorts of things, and we're funny, that going back to that word.
yeah.
You've got all
Yeah. I had to remember. I use it too much. Funny.
fun, fun.
Fun.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, listen, I've got to run, because I've got another lovely call to have. But it's been so fun talking to you. Fun talking
Fun.
to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Likewise.
really looking forward to reading the book.
I, I'm looking forward to hear your response to it. I think you're gonna like it.
Yeah,
I think you will. And maybe we should. I play with the idea of sometimes, go on Zoom, record a conversation, and then put it out as a YouTube, like let people, invite people in to listen to it, and we
yeah,
can maybe consider doing that. So when you read the book, and let's meet again, and then say, okay, from your perspective, because
yeah,
it's always interesting, because I can meet people who say, I don't get, I didn't understand anything. No, what was it with this? And no, and some people say, whoa, it was like, whoa, so it's so interesting to hear. In the
yeah.
beginning, it freaked me out when people say, I don't understand anything. Oh my God, like I wrote a piece of crap book that people don't understand. And then another day, people say, whoa, it's an amazing. Oh, okay, there are different opinions. Okay, that's reaffirming in that we have different perspectives, right? Nothing is right or wrong. It's all a matter of perspective. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. Absolutely. I could talk to you for hours. I could talk to you.
yeah,
Let's
I feel the
let's
same.
and put it out there. It'd be fascinating. So, well, listen, I will drop you a note then when
Yeah,
I've, and then we can organise a time to do that. You have. Oh yeah, we need a picture of Mini Me, don't we? Hang
yeah.
on.
It just says bye bye.
I'm going to take a little picture. Hang on. Honestly, I am so loving my Mini Me adventures. It's
it's
a
a it's a it's a mini avatar.
it's a mini avatar. Yes. There we go. Fab. Lovely to meet you. You have a wonderful weekend, and I shall speak to you real soon.
Same to you.
Take
Bye bye.
Bye.